In today's video, I'm going to show you how I edit my photos in 2024. Let's get right into it. Okay friends, as you can see, I'm using a different camera today. I kind of have to because in order for me to show you how I edit my photos, I need to use my phone. So I'm recording using my traditional camera that I used to use for all of my videos on YouTube, and I hope it looks okay. I hope the audio isn't funky or anything like that. But I'm also sitting off to the side because I am going to share my screen from my Google Pixel 8 Pro so that you can see exactly how I edit my photos. I get this question so often. People will ask me like what apps I'm using, what filters I'm using, and I am here to tell you, spoiler alert, right at the top, I do not use a filter and I do not use third-party apps anymore. And I tend to do a lot of videos like this on the channel. I do updated videos on the channel because my editing style tends to change year over year. And such is the case now in 2024. I have such a simplified version of how I edit my photos. And I'm so excited to share with you just how simple it is because I think this one is going to be really easy to follow along. So let me start sharing my screen. Okay, so I'm just gonna open up my Google Photos app. This is where all of my photos live after I take them using my camera app on the phone. So everything is within the phone. I'm not taking pictures on Instagram and posting it or on TikTok and posting it. I am using my camera app first and foremost, and this is just to ensure that I'm using the camera that the Google Pixel 8 Pro is built in with. I am once again in my Google Photos app, and I'm going to go into my folders and go down to where it says YouTube video example because I made a folder ahead of time to have some photos ready to do an example with you. So let's start with the top one, and I am just going to hit edit at the bottom, and this is where the editing begins and pretty much ends. Once again, I do not use any third-party apps, not anymore, and if I do, it's extremely rare. So everything's happening in here. So this is what I start with. I scroll or scrub over to where it says crop, and if the image is a little bit like slanted, I will use this to make sure it's perfectly straight. I think I did a really good job here when taking the photo because it's actually really straight. But if it was not, this is where I would do a lot more fine tuning. And then I'm going to scrub over to where it says tools, and then I hit portrait blur. Now sometimes when I'm using the Google Pixel 8 Pro camera, whether it's in portrait mode or not, sometimes it will automatically blur, and the camera app is just trying to decipher whether or not I want that blur for like a cinematic effect. And more often than not, I don't need the blur. So I come into here, I go to the blur section, and I set it all the way to 0. So as you can see, if I move it, it'll get more blurry, but I don't want any blur. And then I move over to depth and I change that to 0 as well. The depth is just how deep of the blur I want or don't want on the photo, and once again I don't want any of that, so I set it to 0. Hit done, and then I go to unblur, which is just another blurring, unblurring part. The only difference with this one is that you want this one, or I want this one set to 100 because I want it 100% not blurred. If I was to go to 0, it would have a slight blur. I don't know if you can see that on the left edge, but I want it to have no blur at all, clearly. So I'm gonna hit done, and then I toggle over to where it says adjust. And this is where things start to get aesthetic. So I'm going to actually swipe down on my screen and put my brightness all the way up so that I can see the image as bright and clear as possible. And then I'm going to hit brightness. If you did not know, my feed is actually not on the bright side. So I'm gonna turn the brightness all the way down, usually in like the 40 to 60 range, and I can hold onto the image and see a before and after of my edits. So that's what I'm doing right now, just to make sure that I have it really dark as much as I want it. Then I move over to contrast. I add in just a little bit of contrast. I think that sharpens the image a little bit, so I like to add just a bit of that. Then I toggle over to highlights and I add just a touch of that. The reason why I do that is because I know I put the darkness down a lot or the brightness down a lot on the image, so the highlights just brings it back up just a slight bit in areas that I want it as opposed to on the entire image. Then I'm going to toggle over to saturation. I do want a good amount of saturation. Sorry. I do want a good amount of saturation because I'm going to up the warmth soon. And so I want to make sure that colors are still coming through when I add the warmth. So I'm just adding a bit. Don't have to add too much for this example because the books and the flowers are already super vibrant, but you may see a better example of the saturation soon. Now I'm going to move over to warmth, and this is where I really add in a lot. And this is where you're going to see the image kind of transform. And sometimes I stay in like the 15 to 25 range, but this one kind of needs more because the wall is so like a flat color, like a white almost. So I added in a lot of warmth here. Then I toggle over to tint, and I like the tint. You can either go really, really pink or you can go really, really blue yellow. And I like to go on the more pink side. So I just add a touch to get that subtle bit of pink. I don't know if you can see that pink, but it's very subtle. And I just barely want it there. And then I go over to skin tone, add a little bit of that. This is another, skin tone is basically another way of adding warmth to a photo. Of course, this is meant for skin tones, but when I have images like this, the skin tone does just add a little bit of warmth in a more well-rounded way. So I still end up using it even though there's no people in here. And then I just go back into the settings that I've used and fine-tune if I feel like I need to. Keep holding it to make sure that I like how it looks from before and after. And I think I like how this looks. So this is what the image looked like at first, and this is what the image looks like now. This is definitely something that you would see on my feed. If you go onto my Instagram account, that's probably the best place to find like a portfolio of images. This is a photo that would fit perfectly onto my feed. So I'm just gonna hit done. I'm gonna hit save a copy. And it is ready to go on my social media. Now I'm gonna do one more example. This is another example. It's kind of like a flat lay. Again, there are some colors in here, but once again, I'm gonna hit edit, and I'm gonna go through this one a little bit quicker since I already explained the process. But once I get really into this method, it starts to become second nature for me, and it ends up going really, really quickly. So I can edit a bunch of photos in no time, so long as I stick to my formula. And sticking to a formula is also really important with like for consistency. This one is very yellow. And consistency is important for me because it allows my feed to look really consistent and aesthetic, which is important to me. That isn't necessarily important to everyone, so that's just me. I think this actually looks good. That really took no time at all. But I'm gonna hit done. Save, and there you go. You can also save it as a copy on the Google Pixel 8 Pro. If you want, you can just overwrite it if you wanted to and just save it instead of saving a copy. But this is the original, this is the edited, this is the original, and this is the edited. Very, very simple. I told you this video was gonna be so easy to follow along because that is the gist of it. But I'm going to stop right there and actually share with you another thing that I've been doing on a completely different device. This might be a shocker to some people that don't know from my Google Pixel 8 Pro videos. I do use Apple products for certain tasks, and a lot of people on my threads in particular have been asking me how I annotate some of the photos that you see on threads and on Instagram. I'll put an example right here, but a lot of people ask me how I annotate and what app I'm using to get these little annotations, these little writings, and I actually handwrite it, and I will show you what Apple device I use to do that. So let's jump into that clip right now. Okay, so this is where I do my annotations for photos that you see on my Instagram and my threads, and probably my TikTok as well. This is an iPad. I've had this iPad, I think, since 2015, perhaps. So it's an old iPad. I refuse to purchase another one if this one works just fine. And this is like the first gen Apple Pencil. I should probably charge it now since I'm going to be doing a demo. And this thing dies super fast. I don't know if that's the case for everyone, but this is the first gen, so the battery sucks. But anyway, iPad, and what I use to do the annotations is Procreate. So I'm going to open that up now. And these are just examples of many photos that you've seen on my feed where I have done annotations. So I'm just going to click on one. And as you can see, it's already done. This is what the image looks like. And that's what the annotation looks like. So you've definitely seen this on my feed, but I just wanted to show you the process behind what I'm doing here. So I have two layers. One layer has the text, so I can toggle it on and off. And then one layer has the image, and I can toggle that on and off. How I get the image in here, I basically upload it to Google Drive, and then I save it into the iPad, and then I export it or import it into the Procreate app. And then once the image is in here, I add another layer, and that's the layer that has the text. The text is my handwriting. So what I do at this point is once I've imported the image, I toggle it off and I click over to the one that has the text and say I wanted to change the text. I would click on the eraser, erase the whole thing, click on the pen, which I have it set to 6B pencil, and I have the text in white. And then I take my Apple Pencil. I'm gonna have to do this slanted because I am left-handed and that's just how I write. But let's see, what will I write? We'll just write hello. That looks kind of funky. I'll write the same thing. May favorites. I'm not writing that perfectly. I know that looks like a W, but you get the point. And so I write it. If it looks a little funky, I will adjust it to make it look straight. When I mean funky, I mean slanted because I write slanted. But once I have my writing done, I will toggle back on the image, and then I will use this cursor option up here. Once again, that's what I was using to make it straight, but I will use that cursor option and move it around where I want to move it. And I can adjust the sizing if I want to, and then say I wanted to do that. I would just do that, click off the cursor, and then that's my annotated image. Very, very simple. Once again, I like to keep things simple. So this is just the gist of how I do all of my photos like this. I will go back and show you just examples. All of them look like this. They look like the image that has been imported, and then the text layer where I actually write the text. So that's pretty much it. Very, very simple. I'm sorry that I can't give you my handwriting, but I will say if you get an Apple Pencil with a really good tip, I can't focus, but if you get an Apple Pencil with a really good tip and an iPad with a good screen protector on it, as you can see, I do have a screen protector and it's matte. It feels like paper when I'm writing using this tip, which is very fine tip, and this screen protector, which is very matte. So I don't know if you can hear that, but it feels like I'm writing on a piece of paper, which makes it easier to write. If it's too slippery, it makes it harder to write. So that's just a tip to improve your handwriting on something such as this kind of device, but that's pretty much it. Okay, and so that is how I edit my photos in 2024. Again, super, super simple. That is something that I absolutely love and I appreciate. I have been striving over the years to have a really simplified process for editing photos and making them look really nice, really aesthetic in a simple way without using a billion third-party apps, and I feel like I'm finally in a good space, and it really does validate my purchase of the Google Pixel 8 Pro because I'm finally using what's embedded into the phone to its biggest advantage, more than I've ever done with my Google Pixel phones in the past. And I love to see that. I would love to continue doing that. And I think that just shows how great of a phone the Google Pixel 8 Pro is for people who are interested in photography and videography. I don't want to ever backtrack and have to need to use third-party apps to do my editing. So fingers crossed that never happens on this channel. If I ever do a video in the future and I'm using third-party apps, that will be a testament to the Google Pixel devices not, improving in that space, and I would love for them to do that. But that is all for this week's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was interesting, and I hope it's easy to follow. I would love to see examples of your work if you're using this editing style. Tag me on Instagram, tag me wherever you can tag me, and I would love to check out your work. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and I will talk to you in the next video.